Mexico, as we know it today, has only existed for a little more than 160 years. Before, its borders stretched north through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Now, although it is only 1/4 the size of its northern neighbor, it is still a vast country full of surprises and startling contrasts, geographical and social. In Monterrey, glass and steel office towers and factories rise out of the desert. In northern Veracruz and along the Tabasco coast, oil rigs loom like exclamation points, while in the capital, Mexico City, the sheer density of snorting traffic overwhelms any first-time visitor. On Mexico's Pacific and Caribbean beaches, some 20 million visitors each year bask under the tropical sun and party through the balmy nights. And yet, not far away, you can find the pyramids left by ancient Mesoamerican civilizations, and forests and lagoons full of rare wildlife. In villages and mountain valleys, indigenous Mexicans continue to perform age-old rituals. Mexicans are particularly concerned with their identity. To most outsiders, theirs is one of the most recognizable countries in the world, with its own distinctive music, food, and colorful visual style, and a set of unmistakable symbols, from mariachis to charro cowboys to traditional blouses. Mexico is a complex country that is difficult to define succinctly. Mexican men can be loud and enthusiastic, enjoying lively celebrations and parties, but they can also be reserved at times. Mexicans often show strong displays of patriotic sentiment through ceremonies and singing, yet they can also be critical of their own country. Religion plays a significant role in Mexican society, with deep reverence for religious symbols, but humor can be boisterous and unconventional. Courtesy is highly valued, particularly in the southern regions, although some individuals can be abrupt. Despite the stereotype of machismo, Mexico is surprisingly accepting of homosexuality, and there are matriarchal communities. While Mexico has faced issues with drug-related violence in certain areas, rural regions and small towns are characterized by a pervasive sense of kindness and gentleness. When Europeans settled North America or Australia, they generally pushed the native inhabitants aside or exterminated them. In Mexico and Latin America, the Spaniards dominated the local population, eliminated their rulers, exploited and blatantly mistreated them. But they also lived with them and mixed with them. The Catholic Church, instead of keeping Indians at bay Puritan style, insisted that they be baptized and converted, even if this only produced a syncretic religion, creating the often bizarre mixes of Catholic and pre-conquest beliefs that are characteristic of many indigenous communities today. The great majority of Mexico's 130 million people today are mestizos, or mixed race, of both European and indigenous American descent. This process of mestizage, or racial mixing, that has taken place since the conquest, is the central element in Mexican identity. Rather than the one Spanish Catholic tradition overwhelming the older Native American one, the two became subtly entangled, to the extent that no one can quite tell where one begins and the other ends. And indigenous American traditions are still visible in every part of Mexico, not just museum exhibits of national folklore. The complex intertwining of the two is expressed in countless aspects of Mexican life, from the ever-present cult of the Virgin of Guadalupe and the celebrations of the Day of the Dead, to the delicious, rich variety of Mexico's regional cuisines. Other communities have arrived in Mexico since the first Spanish colonists. Africans brought by the Spaniards as slaves to Veracruz and Guerrero, 20th century Spanish refugees, Jews, Poles, and other Eastern Europeans, and Lebanese. But they have found their place alongside the dominant mestizo culture. Today, multiculturalism is often seen as a positive, and Mexico City's Plaza de las Tres Culturas is one of many monuments around Mexico that celebrate the country's three cultures: pre-Hispanic, Spanish, and the modern Mexican synthesis. For many Mexicans, however, having mixed origins has often been a source of neurotic insecurity, as if it would be simpler just to be one or the other. The conquest, after all, was not some peaceful meeting of cultures, but a bloody drama, and has often been compared to a mass rape. One of the best-known, most emblematic figures in the conquest is La Malinche, the indigenous princess who became interpreter and mistress to Hernán Cortés, and so mother to one of the first mestizos, before being cast aside when Cortés married a Spanish aristocrat. The powerful, somber mural by José Clemente Orozco, showing Cortés and Malinche as a kind of Adam and Eve to the new Mexican people, in the Colegio de San Ildefonso in the capital, sums up all the many frequently contradictory feelings Mexicans can have toward their dual origins. The Virgin of Guadalupe is found everywhere in Mexico and ensures that Catholicism here, like so many things, has a very special national tone and color. A mind-boggling 6 million pilgrims arrive at the vast Basilica de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe in Mexico City every year to pay tribute to Mexico's patron, making this the single most visited Catholic site in the world. Some arrive on foot from the remotest parts of Mexico. Individuals come to ask for help or to make a pledge to the Virgin. Business groups often send representatives, and sometimes a whole village will arrive. In the week leading up to the Virgin of Guadalupe, December 12th, devotees run along roads throughout Mexico carrying flaming torches on pilgrimages to local churches dedicated to her. The red, white, and green image of the Virgin graces nearly every home as one of the world's most pervasive religious icons. Octavio Paz wrote that the Virgin of Guadalupe is the real core of Mexican Catholicism, ahead of Christ or God the Father. And some writers say Mexicans are not really Catholics but Guadalupanos. She is entwined with Mexican life in innumerable ways, a symbol of the racial and cultural mix that is Mexico. The shrine of Guadalupe is on the hill of Tepeyac, which was outside Mexico City in 1531, when, the traditional account goes, the Virgin Mary appeared there to a recently baptized Mexica peasant, Juan Diego, original name Cuautlacoatzin. Speaking in Nahuatl, she told him she wanted a temple built there for all the people in Mexico who loved her. Diego took the message to the Spanish bishop, but was turned away and mistreated. He begged the Virgin to use someone important instead, but she insisted she had chosen him as her messenger. He tried again, until the bishop sneered that, if Diego's apparitions were true, he should show them a sign. The Virgin appeared again and told Juan to go back to Tepeyac and gather everything he found there. At the top of the hill, normally an arid, rocky place, he found a field of dazzling, exquisite flowers. Carrying as many as he could in his plain poncho, he returned to the city. The Spaniards abused him again, but when his poncho fell open and the flowers spread across the floor, the image of the Virgin appeared through them, leaving the bishop stunned and ashamed. Juan Diego's poncho is now the centerpiece of the Basilica of Guadalupe, and he himself was made a saint in 2002. This was the first manifestation of the Virgin Mary anywhere in the Americas to be recognized by the Catholic Church. It was also a remarkable coming together of the new beliefs and the old. Tepeyac Hill had previously been a shrine to an Aztec fertility goddess, Tonantzin. The emphasis on the downtrodden Indian as the Virgin's messenger, and the inclusion of such pre-Hispanic elements as the role of flowers and color as symbols of divine life, also had resonance. The cult of Guadalupe gave Catholicism here a distinct Mexican identity, separating it from its Spanish roots, which also made the Virgin a patriotic as well as a religious symbol. When Hidalgo called for revolt against Spain in 1810, he invoked the protection of the Virgin of Guadalupe for an independent Mexico, and military leaders from Porfirio Diaz to the revolutionary Emiliano Zapata have ridden under her banner. And today, no sensible politician would ever dare criticize the Virgin of Guadalupe. I hope you will have some ideas about this culturally rich country. In the next episode, we will continue to discuss the history of Mexico. See you next time.